Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.
What is going on with this weather?
It's pretty frightening.
It's so weird. It's like hot and sunny, 100 degrees one day, the next day it goes down to 70.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Look at this.
It is warm out, even though it looks like it's going to rain.
Yeah.
Very tropical.
Yeah, it's very tropical. It's not so humid, though. We're very lucky about that. But it's been a busy week. I'm leaving this week. Are you doing anything this week?
I'm supposed to go to Comic-Con Friday. I mean, I've got tonight's show at the East Spot Lounge for charity, and then it's supposed to be Comic-Con Friday. Then I'm supposed to do a live broadcast from Disneyland Saturday. Don't ask me how I'm going to pull it all off.
I told you had a busy week, didn't I?
Totally chaotic. It's a chaotic time. It's been a chaotic last 10 days. It's been
Indeed.
absolutely nuts. I mean, the thing about it is I live probably an hour to 2 hours away from all of these places.
And traffic in LA is not exactly the best thing to actually get yourself involved in, really, is it?
I got to get into Studio City tonight. By Friday, I got to get down to San Diego. I'm not even staying. I'm turning around. You're probably down there.
I'm not going to Comic-Con. I refuse to go to Comic-Con unless I actually have something to go there now.
Well, I saw you there 2 years ago. It looked like you were quite popular and people love to see you.
Yeah, but it's diminishing returns in a sense. When you're there every year, I don't see the point. I mean, it's in reality, Comic-Con's great for those people that actually have shows. When you go to San Diego at that time of year, the prices triple in hotel rooms, anything of that nature. So if you're not going down there on a company's dime, it can become very expensive for you to actually stay even for like 3 days, 3-4 days.
So when is your next big appearance then?
Well, I'm actually going off to Omaha. Is it Omaha? I think it's Omaha.
There is a place called Omaha.
Is there? I've never heard of that before. It's a very strange time for me.
And it's probably a good market for you, I'm guessing.
Well, it's the British Fest. I'm actually going there with a couple of other celebs. One Mark Ryan, who's been on the show before.
There's a British Fest?
There's a British Fest, yeah. So I'm going in as a replacement. I'm a replacement, you see.
Why would you be a replacement?
Well, because I'm not really British and I'm not really American. I've become that ostracized person in the middle of the Atlantic, that type of person. So, it's interesting. But, yeah, I'm going there this weekend, so it'll be a lot of fun, I think. So I'm looking forward to that. My wife and kids are going to a wedding in where's they going? Reno, I think it is.
Yeah.
So they're off. They're getting suddenly, the entire family's leaving, and
why would you? I don't understand why you'd be considered a replacement. I mean, personally, I think you'd be a top flight guest, and you're so good at these things with the people.
Well, I whatever that is, I think everybody should be treated correctly.
Yes, you're engaging. You give people their time. I mean. It's not like some of these other,
Well, some people do that. Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, as you do these conventions, you kind of learn how to structure, the events. And obviously, I did the sword event the last con I was at, which was very popular. So I'm probably going to be continuing that. I won't be doing it at the Brit Fest, but we may be talking. Me and Mark might be talking about. Swordplay in the movies at one point. I believe we're doing that. But it's a question of how do you move forward on stuff. We talk about. I mean, obviously the sword thing was part and parcel of the Peace Fund initiatives, and the sword stuff will continue to support some of the Peace Fund initiatives as well. So it's a win-win situation because people are going there for stuff. We're able to earn money for the charity. I'm able to engage with the guests. It's not all monies will go to the charities in future probably, but a portion of it definitely will do. But the last one we did was for Jordan on our supporter wall, which was doing very well. We're getting close to finishing that initiative off very shortly. And we've got a blog up now for Jordan, and we'll be putting that out there. So Jordan's actually replying or has started his blog about his experience, so you can read about it on Jordan's blog about what's going on. And you can read about this young man who's, like a normal young 9-year-old, 8-year-old. He has his, likes, dislikes, video games, etc., that all kids tend to have. So, he's
You know, it's amazing. You don't really lose track. You're still a kid, even when you're suffering.
Yeah, you do. No, yeah, it does. No, but that's the point. I mean, when he went through some of the stuff he was going through when his grandmother died, I know that the house was broken into, which was something that's not in his thing, and a lot of the stuff that he had, all his video games and all that stuff was stolen. So that all has to be replaced. So even so, when we did. We worked with Kimberly Moore, who I'm hoping to get back on the show in the next week or two. We talked about going down there and helping kids that hadn't had certain things. We've talked about things that kids hadn't had, food or clothes, but then it also became a Disney experience. And even that is something that is very important to these kids because it boosts their morale. It's a moment in time that they'll never forget.
Right. It's happiness.
Exactly. So it's the same thing as a video game for Jordan. It's the same thing that he finds happiness with. Is something that he likes to do. Obviously, I'm not a big proponent of video games all day long, but if it's something you want to do, great. Do it in moderation and in balance with everything else you've got to do.
I can't believe they haven't done a Highlander video game.
They were trying to do one years ago. They actually went, from what I understand, they spent $7 million on doing one. And then the company was bought out by a Japanese company who then looked at the stuff and went, no, we're not doing this, and just canned it. So, it was very interesting. I mean, it does stuff. But, I don't know. Who does video games are going to change and they're all going to evolve into something else. It'll be the experience. It'll be, those video games are now going to become 3D and interactive, and you're going to stand in the room and you're going to be with somebody.
Tron.
Yeah, of course, it's going to get to it.
There actually will be games where you can bet your life probably in the near future.
Well, yeah, it's going to get ridiculous. Unfortunately, we, as the viewing public, always look at things in the death situation, the horror situation, anything that scares us or makes us fearful of something, we want to do it, or we want to be in a place where we can find the danger, but we're actually not in danger. It's, when you're doing the first-person shooting games, for instance, those things are scary when you look at them, but you're not really scary because you're not really in that situation. So you kind of get that adrenaline rush. So I can understand it, but I don't think I'm not a big proponent of it.
No, neither am I. I think the industrial military complex loves all those games. It conditions people to, future clientele, future production demands. I think it's all a big ecosystem.
We talked about a little while ago about Mattel bringing out a Barbie doll that now gets information from your children, as to what they eat, what they do, how they like things, what they're thinking, etc. And to me, that's just that's a whole other thing.
So intrusive, it should be considered illegal.
Absolutely. And there is another program, from what I understand, which is brain mapping, that we may even be talking about, where they are taking 10 young children and trying to find out what they like and when they like it, and what school they go to, and what cereal they like in the morning, and et cetera, et cetera. So basically what they'll have is, by the time these kids are 15, 20 years old, they'll have entire information on a very large proportion of the population, knowing exactly what and where they do things, which is actually, to me, I find very intrusive, because that's really now conditioning your society.
That is exactly what I was thinking. It's so funny you said that. It's like you're basically conditioning people to open up their entire lives for your industrial demands.
Correct, exactly. And that I find wrong. I find it's a lot of the stuff we do, whether it's this country or whether it's a westernized country that tries to control. I mean, the George Orwellian stuff years ago talked about 1984. That didn't happen. Well, it kind of did.
Well, he only got the year wrong.
He got the year wrong, exactly.
He got the year wrong.
It was like 20, 30 years later. But because what that was Big Brother looking down at you and figuring out, could you do this? Are you allowed to do this? You're not supposed to do that. And this is the same thing, because when you have brain mapping or conditioning of that nature, you will then guide your subjects into what they should and shouldn't do, or what they should eat or shouldn't eat.
That's
a very scary thing.
Very frightening bit of technology, isn't it?
Yeah.
God.
Well, the other day I was actually talking to somebody. We're doing website. I was talking to designers on websites yesterday, and we have another one today. And we've got all programmers that we're starting that process. But I was talking to somebody else who actually does processing fees for large corporations such as Facebook and other things. And this company basically does a lot of governmental worldwide processing fees. And he said to me, "When you come to my site, I can heat map you." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, think of Predator. And when you're looking at Predator, I can actually see on there where where you've actually gone on the site. So I can see whether you've scrolled over something, whether you've come onto something. So, but that's the next step. Because today we already have the IP addresses when you open up Facebook or something, and there's a whole bunch of things that you've already searched through your IP on your web is coming up on Facebook ads because they've already figured out from your IP address what you've been looking at. So they're already doing it to a degree. It's just going to go another step further.
Wow. Scary world, isn't it?
Let's talk about. We talked about the weather, and we're in Los Angeles, and we're in the summer. But I think we're going to talk about keeping kids safe for summer. I think we should talk about that because I think that's a big issue. Do we have John Beerley around?
We do.
We do. Good morning, Adrian. Good morning, Ethan.
Hello, John. How
Hello.
are you this morning?
I'm doing very well. Very busy. Had a little bit of excitement. I caught a bird in our house. We had a bird get in the house, so I caught him in a t-shirt and released him to safety. That's been my morning.
He was in a t-shirt?
Well, I caught him in a t-shirt.
Oh, he wasn't wearing it.
No, he was not wearing
okay.
it.
Just checking if he was in the t-shirt, actually flopping his wings through the air. Well, exciting morning for you, John. I see that there are exciting things happening in your life.
Yes.
Birds getting caught in t-shirts and stuff. Water safety. We're going to talk about this morning. I want you to listen to a few excerpts from news stories, which may make you think twice about certain safety issues for your children. A brief conversation on the phone was all it took for a 2-year-old to slip away from his mother's watchful eye and fall into the backyard pool. A 4-year-old wandered away from a picnic gathering of friends and family. She was found at the bottom of a pond nearby. Throwing rocks in the river, an 8-year-old slipped off the bank. It took 20 minutes to find him. He survived for several years with 24-hour nursing care. I mean, these are just typical situations where drowning occur among children and adolescents. And I mean, kids love to play in the water around the pool. My kids do it every day. My kids do not want to not be in the pool, and I took them in there last night actually, and now I feel safe because I actually know that both of them can swim. They both can. My son now has gotten to the point he can swim probably 3/4 of the length of the pool. He's nearly 3, so that to me is great. If he falls in, I know he's going to be able to get to the side. It gives you a certain amount of what's the word?
Peace of
mind. That's it. Thank you. Peace of mind. Because, it doesn't matter where you find water. It's in a bucket, a bowl, a toilet, a tub, a sink, a puddle, a pool.
I don't know if
water's dangerous.
I don't know the statistics. Undoubtedly, you probably do. But I hear about kids drowning deaths all the time, it seems like.
We actually had a situation in Louisville, Kentucky, just this 4th of July weekend that was tragic. There was a family on a pontoon boat. Four adults, 5 children, and the river was choppy, and it sort of forced the boat into a construction barge. They're building a new bridge between Indiana and Kentucky, and it smashed the pontoon boat into a construction barge and caused the boat to capsize. 2 of the children and 3 of the adults were killed in the accident.
Jeez.
And I think it was just this morning that they recovered the body of the last child, who was 10 years old, who had been washed so far away by the choppiness of the river. And it's not a situation where they didn't know what they were doing. The gentleman who was driving the boat was a wildlife photographer who would take excursions out onto the river on this boat to take pictures of wildlife. So he was skilled. He was a skilled boat driver. He was familiar with the craft that he was operating. And the Coast Guard had deemed the river safe for boaters to be out for the 4th of July evening. So it's not a situation where anybody was doing anything that they shouldn't have been, or if they were in a place where they shouldn't have been. It was just circumstances and nature just came together in that right way to have this tragedy occur.
Did they say whether these people could swim, whether they just got swept away? I mean, obviously, how old were the children? Do you know?
The 2 who died were 10 and 14. And I think that the river water was so choppy that I'm not sure that being able to to swim well would have made much of a difference.
So they didn't have life jackets. It's interesting. Even on a pontoon boat, shouldn't they have had life jackets on?
You would think, and the fire department responded very, very quickly, and still were just unable to rescue all of them. It was a sad situation.
Well, you talked about a 14-year-old. Approximately 830 children aged 14 and under drown every year. I mean, it's the second leading cause of unintentional death in children ages 1 to 4. So it's a pretty. I mean, submersion takes less than 10 seconds. I mean, consciousness takes 2 minutes, and permanent brain damage takes only 4 to 6 minutes. So I mean, you can go under, and as we talked about a second ago, you could have a child in 24-hour nursing care for the rest of their life if they are drowning for that period of time for 4 to 6 minutes. That's permanent brain damage. You're not going to get, because oxygen gets deprived to the brain. And the other staggering statistic is also that most young children who drown in pools were last seen inside the house. They've been out of sight less than 5 minutes and were in the care of one or both parents at the time. Can you imagine? I don't know how you feel. If you were the one looking after your child and they suddenly just... I had that fright kind of yesterday. I had my kids at the park just before I came to work yesterday. I actually had my kids at the park, and I was playing with one of them, and the other one was talking to one of my neighbours who had their kids there, and I knew he was talking to him. But for a second, I didn't see him, and I'm like, where? Because I know they can leave in a...
Instant panic.
Yes, that instant, like, where did he go? And then you will look at and you go, okay, he's over there. But even in that instant, it was, a couple of minutes. But in a couple of minutes, a child can go very far, and things can happen. 19% of drowning deaths involving children occur in public pools with certified lifeguards present. So you've got to keep an eye on your kids, even if you do think that they can swim. Kids do play. I mean, when your kids were in the water, Ethan, does she swim? Does she go into pools or stuff?
Yeah, she swims a lot. She swam at an early age. Swimming was important. We didn't have a pool, so I didn't really worry about the drowning issue as much, but I made sure she could swim roughly around, I think she was 5 when she was able to swim pretty effectively. Length of the pool, back, underwater, deep water, the whole bit. The
other issue is, we had our kids in the pool over the weekend, and there were other kids in the pool, and some bigger. And when they start playing, if you notice kids out of the water, they tend to gang up sometimes on one of the kids as fun, or one becomes the monster, one doesn't become the monster, and they start pushing each other. Then they do the same thing in the pool. Now, that makes it much more dangerous, because a young kid, they might say, let's put him under and you don't see that happening as a parent. And then that can happen. So remember that, you've got to make kids aware and keep an eye on them, how they're playing in the pool. Even though they do swim, it's very important that you see what they're doing in that pool.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of that. I don't really stand for that. My kid doesn't stand for that either. I don't think she would gravitate towards.
But it can be just it can be again. It doesn't mean your child, but some kids do it. I mean, I was watching 2 of the boys that were there, are 5 years old, 5.5, 6 years old. They both swim very well, but they were having a disagreement in the pool. You could hear them shouting to each other, and we were watching them. But one push, one keep. Somebody pushes them, hits their head on the side, go unconscious for a minute or something. They drop, go to the bottom. It can happen. So kids can do things that you don't expect them to do. As the old adage goes, you don't know what a child will do until they do it.
Right.
So, and there's a big myth. The myth is that drowning is noisy. I'll hear my child splashing and struggling in time to help. That's not exactly how it works. That might happen in the movies, but it doesn't happen in real life. It really, that myth really endangers kids. They don't have the ability to figure out what to do, such as right themselves or stand up, or even in a few inches of water. And as a result, they might just slip away into silence.
Yeah.
And that's the horrible part. You just don't hear your kids anymore. According to the CDC, in 10% of those drownings, the adult will actually watch the child do it, having no idea it's happening. Think about that. You're watching the child do it and not knowing it's happening. A swimmer in distress may still be able to stay afloat, shout and attract attention, but an active drowning victim devotes all his energy to struggle to breathe. He can't call out for help, he or she, and their arms are pressed down at their sides, an instinctive attempt to keep their head above water. what I teach my kids when they're in water, they hate it, and I'm sorry, I don't care, but I put goggles on them. The reason I put goggles on them, I watch my 3-year-old, is when they're in the water, they try swimming with their head up. And when you're taught to swim in the water, when they teach kids to swim in the water, they teach them to look down to the bottom of the pool, and that way they swim better because their head is down and they can. But if you're upwards, you're floating upwards, you're trying to stay afloat rather than swim forward. So giving him the goggles, the difference is night and day. I stick the goggles on him and he's just a fish. But if I've got his head above water, he's holding the spray gun or his favourite floaty or something, whatever he's holding in one hand, he's still trying to swim because he doesn't know that swimming with one hand is not really that clever. You can't really do it. Do you know what I mean? So I think a child has to, you have to teach them those things. I taught my children to swim by putting little items on the bottom of the pool, giving them goggles, and telling them to look at the goggles, look at the things in the pool while they're coming to me. And gradually they figured it out, and now they, look down. But it takes time. And
they're okay with it now?
Yeah, my kids, as I said, my 3-year-old Royce still has, if he doesn't have his goggles on at first, he'll try and keep his head out the water and try staying afloat and trying to swim in an upright position, even though he knows that when he swims, his head is in the water and his feet are kicking out.
Now, Adrian, with your kids, did you teach them to swim yourself, or did you take them someplace for swimming lessons?
No, we taught them ourselves. We there were swimming lessons. We were going to take them, but since we had the access to a pool, we were there. We found out what the criteria was, in a sense, and we taught them ourselves. And I think it took a summer. My son, this summer, when he first got in the pool, wouldn't come to me. 5 feet away, wouldn't do it. Now I'm literally halfway across the length of the pool, and he'll swim to me. He'll swim the entire width of the pool. So it's a confidence builder. It's a question of actually teaching them how to do things, how to stay afloat, what to do, And gradually, then you teach them stroking. And, I'm teaching my daughter breaststroke at the moment.
That's a hard one.
It is.
Butterfly, too.
That's another one. But it was so funny because I watched my son, and when he first started, he's kicking his legs like the butterfly. And I'm like, really?
Wow.
And it was a natural... They say the butterfly is one of the most natural motions in the pool.
Well, if I remember my Waterworld history correct, that is in fact true, where Kevin Costner was concerned.
Yes. It costs a lot of money, that movie, by the way.
It costs too much.
Because you know why, don't you?
It's a historical debacle.
Yeah, it was. It was because the whole thing...
some of the sets are at the bottom of the ocean.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's what happened. They had to rebuild all the sets because they had a hurricane come in or bad weather, and it just destroyed absolutely everything. All that money.
Never shoot on the water. Never shoot on the water.
I know. In the water in tanks is fine, but on the water, I don't know, it's a tough thing to do. I mean, you watch these movies that actually are on the water. I wonder how, sometimes they make the look of the ocean, and they're probably about, I don't know, 50 meters from the land behind them, and they're shooting out to the open ocean. What
I don't understand on that movie from a production sense is why did the sets themselves have to be on the ocean? Why couldn't they be attached to like a super industrial pier or to land, and you just use like a 3/4 set versus having to have something that floats out to sea? Because the visual you could still get.
Well, you can't, because if you look at it, it's 360 some of it. So you're not going to get that 360.
Well, you
and
can
therefore,
fake
when
the
you've got all that
360-ness.
money, you're like, I don't want 360. I don't want just stuck on land. I want reality. I want to be able to go around it. So we need to be way out in the middle of nowhere. And
you can still go around most of it. I mean,
well, that's what money gets you.
They're all having similar conversations now that most of the crew's been retired.
What can parents do when they're around water? Okay, this thing. Never leave your child unattended around water. Okay, hold on. Guys, what would you do about if you were around water? What would be some of the things? Because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 11 different things that you should do as a parent. What would you do as a parent when you're and your kids are around water? What would you think you guys should do?
Be aware, situational awareness, be aware of where the kids are, what they're doing every second.
Okay, so what else? That's actually aware, yes, but how would you be aware? What should you do?
Well, I was like a lifeguard when my kid was young. I mean, I would not take my eyes off her, and I certainly didn't enjoy the environment around me at most pools.
I would say get rid of distractions. I mean, can you imagine how much trouble we would be in if lifeguards were allowed to have their cell phones sitting up on the lifeguard tower?
That is one of them. Put the cell phone away. Forget about all other things you're doing and give your children 100% of your attention when you're around water. It's a very good one. Okay, what are other things? And remember, water's not necessarily pools. A child can drown in 2 inches of water. It can drown in the toilet. It can drown in your tub. It doesn't mean it's the pool. If it's a very young child, it can drown. What are other things you should do?
It's all very frightening.
Well, think about it, yeah. I mean, you've got a million things to do. Learning CPR is another one of the list that you should do. So if your kid gets shocked, if your kid gets drowned, is in a drowning situation, learning CPR will give you tremendous peace of mind, and the more peace of mind you have as a parent, the better. So, any other things? Any other things? Because it's amazing here what simple things that we didn't even think of.
Well, your mention of the toilet, of child being able to drown in a toilet, you can have toilet seat locks and things like that too. If you have small children in the house, that's a thing.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah,
toilet seat.
Yeah,
lock.
toilet seat. Yeah, you keep. Really? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have locks on toilet. I had them with my kids. They couldn't open the toilet seat, so I would put it on my toilets. It's just something you can buy at Babies R Us or those type of stores, where it prevents them from drowning. You know, it's a good idea to keep bathrooms and laundry rooms closed as well, because if there's water in the tub, or they can turn on the tap, fill up the bath, and get in it. They could quite easily do that if they're 2, 3 years old, 4 years old. I mean. Okay, they're probably not going to drown at that stage, but there are things. The other thing is, don't rely on air-filled or foam toys such as water wings, noodles, or inner tubes to keep your kids safe. They can fall off of that. You know, and another thing which is you don't even think of are drains. Don't allow your kids to play near or sit on a pool or hot tub drain. Body parts and hair can get trapped by the strong suction.
I had a pulverizing fear of that when I was young.
Did you really?
Yeah.
See, because it's and you know the other thing I heard, and it's happened before, where your child knows the pool is outside, whether you're in a community pool or you have a house pool, and what they do is they just open the door and they go out themselves. So simple thing, put an alarm on the door, or alarm on the enclosure to the door to it. So. Or if you really want to go an extra mile, add an underwater pool alarm that sounds when something hits the water. And make sure you can hear that alarm when you're in the house. I mean, those are expensive things to a degree, but there's certain things you should be doing to keep your child safe around water. Never leave them unattended.
Yeah, I agree.
Never leave them unattended.
It's amazing how you still have to tell people that.
Yeah, but it's true. But this is what we should do. There are a lot of things we have this year. There's a few things we should do. There's another great thing we do, and I'm about to buy my son his first bike. I got my daughter her first bike as well because she graduated. His birthday's coming up next week, so he's going to get his first bike. So bicycle safety. You can't break that bond. Every kid loves a bike. Whether they like the razors or the scooters, bikes. They're all those things. You've got to keep. They're great things for cycling. It develops strength, balance, fitness, burns up calories, strengthens the heart, the lungs, and it also develops. And I've noticed my daughter. She started off. She's a bit not strong enough to pedal, and so developing the strength in the muscles around the knees without impact is another important thing. So there's a lot of benefits to biking for children, and they love it. They love it. But more children ages 5 to 14 are seen in emergency rooms from injuries related to biking than any other sport. Think about that. Really? Any other sport. Ages 5 to 14. Helmets can reduce the risk of severe brain injury by 88%. Yet only 45% of kids under 14 and under usually wear a bike helmet. So, I mean, although bike helmets can be... And the other thing is, if you've got a bike and you've got a helmet and you've got friends that don't have it, offer it to them. Your kids are not going to wear it because kids grow out of the bike. We're having that issue with us. We're like, well, we'll buy a bike that's just a little bit big for her or him, and then they'll grow into that. They'll get used to it. And, but at some point, they're going to grow out of that bike. So donate it. donate the helmet with it because it's an important aspect of that.
Isn't that a good idea to share it?
Yeah, share it. We just did. We shared one with our friends. We gave them the bike and the helmet. We gave them the helmet too because obviously as your kid gets bigger, out of the bike size, they're getting out of the helmet size.
Right.
And so it's not a waste. It's not a waste. Not at all, no. There's actually 55% of children don't always wear a helmet while bicycling. So,
we never did that as kids.
I didn't either.
We never wore a helmet.
But that might be the reason,
It could be the reason
for a lot of things.
For a lot of
things, really, for us,
Yeah.
That's some of the things that we are. What about you, John? Did you have a helmet when you were young?
I did not wear a helmet when I was young. No.
No, I
didn't.
It's become a recent trend, like in the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, but it has helped. I mean,
It's smart.
Yeah, it is, and even knee pads and elbow pads. I mean, those things.
I can't believe the stuff I tried to do on my BMX when I was 10.
Oh yeah,
I can't believe I did that stuff without a helmet.
Well, look at the kids that are doing skateboarding and they're doing it on rails and stuff. The injuries you see online are horrific. Bones protruding through bodies and scrapes that need massive stitches and it's horrific. I mean, the thing about being a kid, and we don't understand this as an adult, is the fact that you think you're invincible.
Yeah.
That's the point. Until you really get damaged, you're like, I don't know if I should do that again. Just putting your finger in that light socket doesn't exactly have any recourse to you as a kid until you get shocked. And you're like, maybe that wasn't a good idea. But then it's too late.
Yeah, I was always cautious on my skateboard, but not so much on a bike. I guess comfort level. But, craziness. Obscene crazy.
Were you crazy, John, when you were younger on a bike?
He's crazy now.
Oh, I know.
No, honestly, I mean, I should have worn a helmet because and again, as I said on the show before, I live out in the woods. So riding a bike in my yard is like being on the Forest Moon of Endor in Return of the Jedi, where you're zipping between trees, and it's a miracle I didn't smack my face or my head on a tree. I probably did once or twice, and I don't remember, and that explains why I'm so batty today.
What a tie-in, huh? The way he worked Return of the Jedi into that.
I know, yeah, it was good. He does that easily, Jeez. Okay, let's do a little bit of true or false here, because I think it's kind of, let's take a little quiz, because I think that's always fun to do on the show. A lot of the time when you walk, I mean, if you're on an unpaved road, this is in general, is it better to walk against the traffic or with the traffic?
I would say my feeling is against. But that's just me. I like to be able to see what's coming
at
me.
That's correct. As you walk.
Yeah.
But as you ride, is it safer for your child to ride facing traffic, or is it safer to ride with the traffic?
I think it's safer to ride with the traffic, but in California, it's just a hardcore risk either way.
What about you, John? What's your, since you come from a different part of the world?
This is Mad Max.
I think my notion would be ride with. But I'm also kind of in the same camp as Ethan. I see the way people drive anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. People drive like crazy, and they don't pay attention, especially with cell phones and things, to take even more attention off the road these days. I wouldn't want my kids running on the road ever under any circumstances. But I would think maybe with
you do have to rely on the driver to see you.
You have to drive, yes.
And that's a level of trust I just don't have in our California drivers, honestly.
It is false. It is not safer for your child to ride facing traffic. They should always ride, like you guys just said, with the traffic, because it kind of confuses drivers. Mm-hmm. And almost 1/4 of bicycle car collisions result from bicyclists riding against traffic. So just think about that.
And with state of driving where the drivers are already confused, why
increase it?
Why increase it by driving? I guess.
Well, we're so distracted these days, and that's one of the things about texting and driving, etc. I mean, that can happen. It's just you just don't want to do that. Here's another one. Bike reflectors and a reflective vest will make it safe for my child to ride at night. Is that true or false? Bike reflectors and a reflective vest will make it safe for my child to ride at night.
It sounds like it would, at least from a vision standpoint, but these are all trick questions with you, so I really don't know what the answer is to that.
What about you, John?
I would think that you would not want your kids on the road at night. on a bike, period.
But if they are, should they?
But
wear
if I mean, obviously,
reflectors?
yes, if they are. But
Right.
I'm with Ethan. I sense a trick question.
Well, I believe that bike reflectors and reflective vests make it safer for you to drive at night. However, it's never safe for your child to ride a bike at night.
I agree with that.
Because night riding requires special skills and special equipment. Few youngsters are equipped with either. You know, they don't have lights and all this stuff. And so never allow your child to ride at dusk or after dawn. Dusk is the worst time because it's the change of daylight and people's eyes are adjusting. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, John, we're going to be talking. Let's just have a few updates from you while we're discussing this, because I can't believe we've gone through 35 minutes of the show already. It's amazing.
Well, actually, I'd love to bring on our hero of the week, who has done a lot of work with bicycle safety herself at a very young age. Can we go ahead and get her on?
Let's try this. Here we go.
Let's do this.
See if I can
Okay.
make this work.
Today's Hero of the Week segment, we're going to check in with one of our previous heroes, who has had a lot of experience with today's topic. On June 4th of last year, we talked to Olivia Keith. Her website is oliviakeith.com. She has two parents who've suffered traumatic brain injuries, and she was inspired to found her own organization called Play It Safe to educate children about safety on the streets, on playgrounds, and in everyday situations.
Olivia, I think you're online. Are you there?
Yes.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, Olivia. How are you?
I'm feeling good. How about you?
We're actually fantastic here. We're having a lovely morning. We've run over a little bit. So where are you calling from right now? Where are you?
I'm calling from Fishers, Indiana.
Indiana. That's
My home state as well.
That says your home state as well, John.
That's right.
So can you remind the listeners how old you are, Olivia?
I just turned 12 about a month ago.
Awesome. Congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
How old were you when you founded Play It Safe, and what was your inspiration founding it?
I started when I was 10 years old, and what inspired me is that both of my parents have brain injuries.
That is tough. So
Yeah.
what has Play It Safe been up to this summer? What have you been up to? What have you been doing?
Well, I have done 30 presentations in 9 days, and I've passed out over 140 bike helmets at the Boys and Girls Club of Noblesville.
That's awesome. Where do you get the helmets from?
I get them from the website helmetsrus.com.
Sorry, can you say that again?
I get them from the website helmetsrus.com.
I see. And how do you distribute them? How do you get them out to people? Do you just take them to the local Girls and Boys Club?
Yeah, I do a presentation on Play It Safe, and then at the end of everything, I just pass out the helmets.
So when you do one of these presentations, how does it kind of go? What do you do?
I talk about the brain safety information. I also pass out my Play It Safe tip cards that has 5 tips for playing it safe inside and outside, and then I pass out the helmets.
And what do you think? Do you think people, the information you have on there talks about what? Talks about wearing a helmet, ways to ride? What does it have?
It says, wear a helmet and make sure it fits properly. When outside, always make sure you can be seen. Play by the rules. Buckle up when riding in a car. And have an emergency plan and know how to respond.
So how does somebody put a helmet on correctly?
Well, you have to make sure that it fits properly. And it has to be 2 inches above your, 2 fingers, above your eyebrows.
2 fingers above your. What about the straps? How should they fit?
It has to kind of be snug up to your chin.
Snug up to your chin. Because I always wonder that when I actually put my little ones in their helmets, how tight that should be.
This is great.
Yeah, I mean, is it tight enough that so how tight should it be so that you've got? Should the helmet move around, or should it be sort of snug enough so that the helmet's not moving?
Well, when you move your head, it should not be shaking. It should be perfectly with your head.
So, as a test, you should get your child to kind of move your head around a little bit so you can see whether it's tight enough?
Yes.
Awesome. So, what have you found are the biggest ways that parents and kids can improve when it comes to basic safety? What do you think a way to improve that?
Well, I think they should communicate. I mean, parents need to sit down and talk with their kids and make sure that they understand. and practice with each other about like safety.
Do you actually tell the parents and the children that you visit that information?
Yes.
And what do they say? Do they take the leaflets? What do they say to you afterwards?
They're like, well, this is amazing, and then I'm pretty sure that they go home and they talk with their kids about it, and they have an emergency plan and know how to respond.
That's awesome. It's interesting. Do some of them say, "Oh, I never thought of that"?
Some people do, yes.
Yeah, I mean, because I think what happens is as you grow up, you forget what it's like when you're on a bike and what certain safety issues need to be taken care of. So I think parents need to be reminded as well as the kids, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And do you have any summer safety tips for all parents and kids who are listening today? Is there anything else?
I have 5 summer safety tips.
Okay.
So I have schedule outdoor activities before 10 a.m. and after 4 p.m. to avoid sun exposure during peak UV hours. And remember, UV rays are present even on cloudy days.
That's awesome. Good job. That's a very good one.
Second tip is use the buddy system not only in the pool, but also when you are just playing outside. My third safety tip is for those of us who stay home while our parents are away, make sure there is a list of important phone numbers for both parents, a close neighbor, and talk about emergency plans for bad weather, accidents, or other emergencies. My fourth summer safety tip is for the parents. Make sure you are not on your phone or other device when you're outside watching over your kids, especially in public places and parks. Remember, you have a responsibility to not let yourself be distracted. And my last safety tip is make sure kids know what to yell if they are in need of assistance. For instance, when they are in a park and a stranger approaches them, they need to yell something that is distinctive from all the other yelling and noise, like stranger or that's not my dad. This will draw attention and other adults to also take action.
That is awesome. That's a great tip, that last one. I'm going to have those put on our site and in our blogs. I think they're fantastic tips. I want to go back to your number 2 tip, your buddy tip. Can you explain a little bit about the buddy system?
Okay, so when you're like in a pool, you also want to make sure that you're with a buddy, so if anything happens, that you have someone there to help with backup, or if you accidentally get caught on something like, ooh, there's an ice cream truck and he might be just a kidnapper, like your friend's there to be like, maybe we should go away from this person and like help you.
So do you teach this, did you teach this to your friends at school? Have any of your friends gotten involved with your Play It Safe foundation?
Yes, I have had over 5 people who have actually wanted to help me and go to presentations at the Boys and Girls Club.
Awesome. And are they from your school?
Yes.
And do you hand out the leaflets of your school and do the tips as a reminder each summer, or how do you do that?
Every school year during March, which is Brain Injury Month, I do a presentation to my class, and I've been doing it for 4 years now, and I talk about Play It Safe.
So, Brain Injury Month is which month?
March.
And is that a national Brain Injury Month?
Yes.
It is. And that's for people that have suffered injury in an accident through not wearing helmets or any other type of brain injury. Is that what the month is for?
It's basically just brain injury awareness.
Okay. So, and you said your parents had suffered brain injury. Have they helped you at all in this quest of yours?
They have helped me and supported, and they're very encouraging throughout my experience with Play It Safe.
Well, that's awesome. I think this is a great thing you're doing, Olivia. I think you should definitely do more of it, because people don't forget. We forget as adults some things that, we did as kids. I mean, Ethan and I on the show here this morning were talking about when we were riding our bikes. We never had helmets. We never had none of that. We never did that. So now that all these statistics on brain injury and accidents, that we forget to do that with our own children. So I think it's a great thing that you're doing.
Thank you.
Well, Olivia, thank you so much for coming on this morning. We'll have all our information on our show. And please keep up the good work as one of our Peace Fund Heroes of the Week. and thank your parents as well, because I think it's very important to thank them because they're the ones that have supported you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Keep up with the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Brilliant. Really impressive.
So awesome. I'd like to thank Olivia's mom, Darcy Keith, and her father, Chris, who have been so supportive of the work that she does. Darcy is one of the state of Indiana's top motivational speakers. She does lots of work with athletes as well. You can find her mom's website at darcykeith.com, and you can find Olivia's website about all of her various programs and presentations that she makes at oliviakeith.com, including the work that she's done, again, at the age of 12 with professional athletes. The Indiana Pacers recognized her as an Indiana hero for the work that she does to bring awareness to children's safety. She's doing a lot at a very young age. We're very proud of her.
You know, John, I was actually feeling like I was on that show, Are You As Smart As a Fifth Grader? Is that the show?
And the answer is probably not.
I was like, oh, I didn't think of that. Just got schooled by a 12-year-old. This is awesome. Awesome. Congratulations, Olivia. I think it's a fantastic thing. I want to give a couple of shout-outs to a couple of organizations as well that might give you some tips on keeping your kids safe. Safe Kids Worldwide, which is www.safekids.org. It's a global organization dedicated to preventing injuries in children. Which the number one killer of kids in the United States. Around the world, a child dies from an unintentional injury every 30 seconds. And millions of children are injured in ways that can affect them for a lifetime, so you can check them out there. Also the YMCA, ymca.net, America's 2,686 YMCAs across the nation serve more than 21 million people every year, uniting men, women and children of all ages, races, faiths, religions, backgrounds, abilities and income levels. Swimming is a life skill as well as a great exercise and a challenging sport. The Ys offer swim lessons for all children, so check them out there. John, do you have any other updates for us?
Yes, very quickly, I would like to have everyone visit thepeacefund.org, and you can find out the various ways you can help not only support our show, but also support Jordan, the young man who Adrian mentioned earlier in the show. You can see Jordan's supporter wall, you can read his story, and you can also read his blog at helping-hands.thepeacefund.org.
Brilliant.
So that's where you can read his blog and learn about his progress. It's great not only do we help these young people, but also see the progress that they're making. And very quickly, I also wanted to mention the David Fry Memorial Fund 8th Annual Golf Tournament at davidfreymemorial.com to support a young man named Alexander, who we're helping in association with the Children's Organ Transplant Association, who we've talked to on the show many times as well. Alexander was born with necrotizing enterocolitis, which basically means that his intestines were killing him, and they had to remove his colon, most of his small intestine. He needs a bowel transplant, and the David Fry Memorial Golf Tournament will be helping support him this year, so you can check that out.
Thank you, John. It's a thing we've done actually this is the third annual, I believe, David Fray Memorial tournament that has actually helped as well some of the Peace Fund children that we support. So please check that out. If you play golf, you can actually go there and on the East Coast. Anybody a golfer out there? Only millions of you. So if you want to support a kid and have a great day, check it out. It's also the davidfreymemorial.com. You can actually go out there, and your entry fee into the competition or into the event will go towards supporting our two organizations. So please check that out. John, thank you for bringing us this morning. We are
my honor as always, guys.
Again, very closing. I don't know where the time goes anymore because it just flies by. We'll have some very interesting guests coming up in the next few weeks, I believe. And Ethan, thanks for bringing us this morning. Obviously, everybody out there who has supported the Peace Fund and continues to do so, thank you so much, because we can't do what we do without your help. And in closing, I'd like to finish with our closing quote of the week by Will Fetters. Our fingerprints never fade from the lives we've touched. This is Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul from Peace Fund Radio. We'll talk to you next week.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul. right here on LA Talk Radio.